This is the brand new 2020 Pivot Switchblade. And let's just get this out of the way. This is not an enduro bike, but rather an extremely versatile trail bike that hits squarely down the middle of how most mountain bikers use their bikes. Big shout out to Chad at Rhythm Bikes in Oakland, California for loaning me this bike. And if you're anywhere in the Bay Area, Rhythm Bikes has both medium and large demos in stock ready to go. The Switchblade is full carbon featuring 142 millimeters of DW Link rear suspension with, you guessed it, Super Boost rear spacing. The model I rode was a Pro X01, which features 160 millimeter Fox 36 factory fork, a custom tuned Fox DPX2, an almost full X01 drivetrain, Guide RSC brakes, and DT Swiss M1700 wheels featuring some very familiar Maxxis rubber. All of this will set you back $7,300. I'll be completely honest, I had some preconceived notions about how this bike would ride based on its numbers. However, there were a few things that actually surprised me. Let's start with the things that didn't surprise me. I knew coming into this review that the Pivot Switchblade was not going to be an enduro crusher like my Mega Tower, and that turned out to be completely true. As a result, the bike feels much lighter on its feet and eager to change direction.
Oh, this bike is super quiet. I love it. The conditions here are just amazing. Man, this custom shock tune is pretty nice, I have to say.
Now let's move on to what actually surprised me. And first is how good the rear suspension feels. And I don't know what kind of voodoo Pivot and Fox applied to the DPX2, but I can tell you it works. And in many ways, it defines all of the suspension principles I've come to know. A bike that pedals as well as it does has no business feeling as smooth and supple as it does going downhill. A supple suspension should not be this supportive in the mid-stroke, and there's even enough bottom-out progression to smash things pretty hard without issue. It's definitely a head-scratcher, and I'm having a hard time finding anything to improve in this area. In terms of climbing, the DW Link suspension on this bike feels way more detached to the terrain than any other bike that I've ridden in recent memory. And what I mean is the terrain has little to no effect on what you're feeling on the pedals. It's almost like you're on an exercise bike with the actual ground moving underneath you. The only other time I feel that sensation is when I'm on a 4-bar horse link suspension, but those bikes tend to squat and move way more under power as I find myself often reaching for that climb lever. The second thing that surprised me is how quickly I adapted to this bike. I'm usually going back and forth getting the bike tuned to my liking, but on the Switchblade, I set it up in the parking lot and found myself immediately going at PR pace without ever having to touch any of the knobs throughout the ride. Now, I either got extremely lucky with the initial setup, or this Pivot Switchblade has a really big sweet spot. And when you couple that with more approachable geometry, I think a lot of people will just jump on this bike and have fun right away. What are some things I would change on the Switchblade? The only spec I didn't like were those Guide G2 brakes. And honestly, they're probably fine, but the biggest thing wrong with them are that the code brakes exist. Also, the colors that are offered this year might not be for everyone, and then of course there's the price. $7,300 is a lot of money, but sadly, that's in line with other boutique bikes in this class, including the Yeti SB130 and Santa Cruz Hightower. So who's this bike for? I feel like there's going to be two camps on this one. There are those who are going to wish Pivot went a little bit more aggressive with the geometry. But then there's the other side who still wants a bike that climbs as well as it descends and appreciates the fact it's not trying to be the slackest bike out there. Regardless, unless you're an extreme XC or enduro racer, this Pivot Switchblade hits right in the middle of the trail market, and I'd be shocked if it's not their best-selling bike of all time. Alright guys, hope you liked this review, and remember, those trails don't get easier, you get better. We'll see you on the next one. Cover your ears, Brian, because I think this might be better than the SB130.